Hi, welcome to the very first Legends Chat with Empress Palace. Our first guest today is none other than comedian, one of the most sought after comedians in South Africa, David Cow. David Cow, 22 years in comedy, 17 years with Blacks Only. Welcome, David.
Yeah, the 17th year is questionable.
It's oh, why is it questionable there, Dave?
Hey, this year is questionable.
So
Forget about 2020.
So yeah, we were supposed to have our first of the 17th year show in April. Never happened. The second one is supposed to be in August.
Ish, fit. And so we'll see how that goes. We'll see what the lockdown regulations are. I don't know how prepared Empress Palace is, because you have to fumigate people, spray them, disinfect them, wear gloves, wear masks, fumigate the chairs, sanitize the chairs, the alcohol, the glass, the computer kit, the mics, the comedians. I don't know what
the comedians. So what have you been getting up to during this lockdown?
I've been making a lot of content for my YouTube channel. And then I've been doing also content for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I've been doing a lot of live interviews with some of my friends across all the platforms. And then all I'm doing, honestly, I go and buy bread and I come home. And that's all I've been doing.
No, awesome. So
I wash dishes and I buy bread and I come home.
Oh, so I saw that you're doing homeschooling. How's that going?
I've tried homeschooling as well. My wife is much better than I am. With me, it's a disaster, you know. I don't think my kids take me seriously. So I've left it to my wife to continue with homeschooling. I come in just with silly things like home economics, sports, physical education, playing games and watching YouTube. That's my department.
Do you miss being on stage and entertaining the people?
Yes, it's like a disease, man. It's like an addiction. And, I kind of knew, okay, this is not happening. I was in denial at first. I think 3 weeks before the show, in my head, I still believed we're going to continue. Then they announced the lockdown. And then we thought, okay, we'll just postpone the show. The people who have tickets can come to the next show. And then someone tweeted me asking for their money back because they said they need the money to buy groceries before lockdown,
Yeah.
So I think the reality started hitting that people will want refunds because they don't know when is the next show. We can put up another date, obviously, but we have to see what the regulations are like at that time.
Yeah, it depends, absolutely.
And what the different levels allow.
But I'm assuming the next theme for Blacks Only would be lockdown.
So, obviously we went through lockdown, then there was extended lockdown, and then there was the levels, So it will definitely have to have something with it. But you can imagine by August, I think yesterday there were 525 new infections. So we might even reach 1,000 infections a day in the next few days.
Yeah.
So we don't know if people would have died or how many people would have died by then, by the time we get back on stage as comedians. We don't know how serious the situation might hit. And for me, that's always how I decide what's the next theme, or how do we theme the next Blacks Only, So, but definitely, obviously, we can't run away from our experiences in lockdown and other people's experiences in lockdown.
Yeah.
People have been getting arrested for silly things. There's a guy who tried to smuggle his girlfriend in the boot of a car from Gauteng to Mpumalanga. So there's a guy in Mitro that they arrested with cows because he was going to get married and he was supposed to pay Lobola. His deadline was end of April. So he thought the girl might not want to marry him anymore. So he took cows anyway, trailer, and was in her parents' house. And the Metro cops arrested him in Midrand. So you can imagine how many things would have happened by August.
Yeah, it's pretty hectic. I also wanted to ask you when we go back now in terms of sensitivity and what you just said. I mean, people are
Yeah.
really sensitive to other jokes. How do you like select your content and make sure that your content is good for the audience?
I mean, I always go with what I think is funny, regardless of what is it about.
Yeah,
So not the other way around. So I wouldn't go after Corona just so that I'm talking about Corona. But if I
yeah,
have something funny to say about coronavirus or COVID or lockdown, then I'll do some stuff about it.
yeah,
And I think of social media also, sometimes you can already gauge that if you talk about this, people are gonna laugh. It's not a problem
absolutely.
because it's been trending on social media. Or you can also tell that, ish, this person tried to make a comment about this thing and their heads were almost chopped off, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But obviously, social media is not 100% the decider of what we talk about.
No,
In
absolutely.
fact, we do the talking first, and then social media comments or follows. So we still have to set the tone.
Yeah,
Because as comedians, we can't be in prison again now. You've been in lockdown and all this economic meltdown, and now when you have the freedom to make people laugh and say what you want,
yeah,
we can't now put ourselves in prison again and be afraid of what will people say. You know, I always say what's on my mind
yeah.
and what I think people wanna hear or talk about. It's the best thing about stand-up comedy. You find out right there and then. It's unlike
Yeah.
television.
But what do you think is your greatest achievement ever?
Look, I mean, for me, it's Black Songly obviously spun off other things. So, for instance, there's a lot of comedians that nobody knew until they were on Black Songly, and
Absolutely.
they've gone on to achieve other things on their own or have bigger careers. So it's not just Black Songly on its own. It's already spun off into so many things. So from the Pure Monati show when we started before Black Songly, then we did
Yeah.
Black Songly.
Mm.
I've toured and performed in Montreal just for laughs, and I've
Yeah.
toured with Russell Peters in Canada and some parts of California. I always like finding new talent. For me, I think that's the one thing that I think I've done my best with.
Yeah. What would you tell the people at home to actually focus on? I mean, the young guys, the young comedians. I mean, you from Kronstadt and the guy from Alexandra or maybe from Soweto who's actually up and coming and wanting to be a comedian. What is it that you actually did that actually took you to where you are now?
Well, what they must understand and also focus on now, obviously being original for me is always the first thing that I encourage with up and coming or new comedians. You have to be original, as original as you can. Be yourself. Don't pretend to be someone you're not. But more than that, now, what matters is their presence on social media.
Yeah.
Going to matter 100 times more than it used to,
Yes.
especially because of lockdown.
Mm.
Now people are stuck. Comedians can't work, musicians can't work, DJs, etc. But some people are surviving online on their YouTube channels, on their Twitter, Instagram. But also when I book comedians, it helps if they have a certain social media following
Yeah.
that they've already built for themselves, so that when I put them in front of my audience and we put them at our show, they can also then bring a little bit of their audience, or their fans can at least see them
Yeah.
performing at a show of that magnitude. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it happens once in a while for some comedians.
How do we break through the cluster and go out and say, no, Blacks Only is not just Blacks Only, it's just comedy show for everyone?
So I think what's important and the message for me has always been, this is a show for Black comedians, which is we still have a white comedian, we still have
Yeah,
Indian colored comedians,
we have significant.
obviously on the show, but this was a platform for Black comedians because they didn't have one.
Yeah,
So, and for them to, if they wanted to perform in other languages, they can also do that on
mm,
the show, even though the majority of the show is still in English.
absolutely, absolutely.
So I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way
You
to
advertise.
say, "Ish, we need to get more Indian people or more colored people." I think the brand, people know what it is.
Yeah.
Some people are able to come and some are unable to come.
Yeah.
Some will watch online or on YouTube, or some will find out who was on Blacks Only and try and go find those comedians for themselves, wherever they are doing their own shows or in other lineups for that matter.
So I'll jump to our social media question. So we posted and asked people to post their social media question or inbox us with social media questions. Most of them came from Facebook. We had so many of them from also Instagram, but most of these came from Facebook. So we chose 5 from Facebook. So the first one comes from John in Tembisa, who says, who is the most famous person you've ever performed for or with?
So Russell Peters, Jimmy Carr has performed at Blacks Only.
Oh.
In Empress Palace. Yeah, when he had a show and it was sold out, he finished his show and drove to Empress Palace and jumped on stage. I've worked with so many comedians, man. I've performed with Tom Segura in Canada, Just for Love. I've performed with Russell in Canada, in California, Russell Peters. Some comedians I've met, I've never performed with, but I think Russell Peters, obviously being one of the biggest comedians in the world.
He's great, yeah.
And some I met and knew, like I've known Lil Rel, Lonely Love. We performed together in South Africa 8 years ago. I mean, Lil Rel now is one of the biggest and fast becoming one of the most famous comedians on Netflix. Got a couple of films, got his own specials now.
Yeah.
So it's quite a mixed bag, because I've known most of these people from when I started, 18, 19 years ago. That's when I met Russell Peters, Jimmy Carr, Ross Noble, and most of the Americans that I know today. That's why I still know them, and I'm very good friends with most of them. But it's always a pleasure to have. I mean, Capone has done Blacks Only at Empress Palace many years ago. When he left, he was recommending Kevin Hart, but that was before Kevin Hart was the Kevin Hart that you guys know. So when Capone left South Africa, he kept saying, "There's this guy you have to bring."
Yeah.
And that's when Kevin Hart was fast becoming famous after his special, Seriously Funny.
Yes.
And then all the other specials followed, Laugh at My Pain, and then Kevin Hart,
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, the second question comes from Shadrach in Kempton Park. So Shadrach wants to know, how old were you when you realized that you were actually funny?
Just growing up, strateng, but I didn't think it'll be a career. Only when I was maybe second or third year at UCT. That was 1998.
Yeah.
When I was in drama.
Yeah.
But I wasn't thinking of stand-up comedy until end of 1998, when I was booked to be in a stand-up comedy festival, which was the first time I was at a stand-up comedy show. So growing up, it was just the typical South African, either you're the naughty one, you're always getting kicked out of school, out of class. The teacher wants you to sit next to them so that they can monitor you. But I never thought that might become what it is now.
The third question is from Palesa in Florida. So Palesa wants to know if your family finds you funny.
My wife sometimes, but most of the time she doesn't. She thinks I'm ridiculous, or she'll ask, "Are you gonna say that on stage?" And that's how I gauge some of my jokes. If she doesn't think it's funny, then I know I'm going to perform it in public.
Oh no, that's great, man. So the fourth one, I just want to go through this. The fourth one is from Jimmy in Bedford View. He's asking, which comedian inspires you?
I've mentioned Russell Peters already, Chris Rock.
Yeah, you have.
And then a lot of guys for me, that I came up with when we were studying, Riyad Musa, just in terms of how he approaches just creating a joke or material or writing material and delivering. Keeping in mind he's a fully qualified doctor.
Yes.
Tenjiwe Mosley. When it comes to YouTube and being online and creating content. I've got about 104 videos on my YouTube channel. I've had YouTube channel for 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years, got more than 900 videos.
Yeah,
and
that's
she's only been on YouTube in about 4 years.
Wow. Okay. The fifth question, the last question from the audience is from Violet in Midrand. So Violet wants to know, what is your most embarrassing moment on stage?
I think I tore my pants maybe 2 years ago on stage in Cape Town at the Black Song, and I had only packed those pants. So I ended up wearing a jacket that did not match my pants, and I had this suit. I mean, it was like a 12,000 rand suit that I tore the pants on stage. And then I looked very dodgy that show.
Yay. That's crazy. Okay, thanks, David. So the next segment is very quick. So I'm gonna ask you it's 5 questions, so you have to choose between the two. So it's called 5 over 5, right? So the first one is, so do you prefer house music or kwaito music? Which one?
Kwaito.
Kwaito. Oh, nice. Ronaldo or Messi?
Ronaldo.
Why Ronaldo, bro? Yes. But anyway, Casper Vesto, aka, I think this one's gonna get you.
It's a tricky one. Do I have to choose?
You have to choose, I think.
Casper.
No, that's great. And then another tricky one is year 2019 or year 2020. Which year?
They were both shit. They can. No, all of them were shit. I prefer 2020.
So 2019 was also not great.
2017.
Okay, I'll leave with that. Another last tricky one. I don't know. This one's going to be also tricky. So DJ Fresh or DJ Frankie?
DJ Frankie has been on Black Song for years, bruh.
Yeah.
So DJ Frankie.
So no DJ Fresh, eh?
Well, you give me, if that's the choice, DJ Frankie.
Oh no, awesome. So Dave, in closing, is there anything you want to push? I know Black Song is coming very soon. Do you want to push anything via social media also? Your handle
I just now, literally, I live on my Twitter at David Kau1, my Instagram at David Kau, Facebook at David Kau Comedian, TikTok, David Kau Comedian, and my YouTube channel now is every day. That's all I think about. It's David Kau, Mr. David Kau. That's all I think about. That's all I work on. That's all I'm creating content for. It's my YouTube channel, because that's where people will find me during this time until we're back on stage again.
Oh, awesome stuff.
And some clips from some of the old Black Song shows as well.
Okay. So, any message to your fans for post COVID and whatnot? Any advice?
People must just be safe and keep themselves protected, because we all want to come out of this thing alive, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of people will get it. A lot of people are going to get sick. Some people are going to die. So you don't want to be those ones. You don't want to be the small percentage of people that might lose their lives to this thing. So everybody must protect themselves and follow the rules and laws and regulations. Don't try to be a steering, and don't do anything you don't have to do, you know?
Awesome.
If you can afford to stay home, stay home.
Awesome. Thank you very much, David. It's been really great getting to know you and answering all the questions that we had for you.
Hey, Tara.
Hola. Thanks.